All right, thanks again for joining us. So, just for some quick introductions, my name is Alec, and I'm a technical account manager here at Accelo. I've been with the company just under a year now, and I'm part of our customer success team. I'm really looking forward to co-hosting another one of our live training webinar series, which we hope will contain some very important content for all of our clients here today. I'm also joined by Dave, who's one of our product experts at the company. Dave is a professional services engagement manager, and he's been managing client implementations for over 3 years now. So definitely one of our more tenured employees. If you've joined past webinars as a part of our live training series, then you'll know that we've structured them a little bit differently than traditional webinars usually go. All areas we'll be covering in the live training are actual use cases that real customers have asked during implementation or expert services sessions. We'll spend a little time later on today explaining how expert services works to give you some more context. But first, let's go ahead and jump into some content. As I mentioned before, today's session is covering email capture and requests, which is an absolutely critical piece for ensuring your inbound and outbound email settings are set up correctly for your unique business needs. Many of these configuration options are for system administrators, but if you're a standard Accelo user, you'll still find a lot of value from today's session as well. The topics that we're going to be covering today include email capture rules and integration settings, request inbox settings and email forwarding, email aliases and divisions, email privacy, and last but not least, user-specific email preferences. And as a quick reminder, if you have any questions along the way, please go ahead and add them into the Zoom chat. We'll try to answer all of the questions during the live Q&A at the end, but if we're not able to, that's not going to be a problem because we're going to respond to every single question via email after the session. So with that being said, let's go ahead and begin. Dave, to kick things off, let's start with the basics. Accelo has a powerful feature to pull in emails and have these emails show up in the stream. How does this actually work?
Hey, Alec. Thanks for having me today. And I'm happy to be here, happy to help. Email capture is an extremely useful feature available to all Accelo users. When enabled, your client communications are automatically stored and sorted in Accelo and will be visible in the company stream, like we see here for Advanced Refrigeration. It not only helps keep your emails organized, it gives your entire team the ability to track these communications and achieve a new level of collaboration on your work. Instead of spending the time to shoulder tap your coworker to ask what they've been talking about with the client, you can now hop right into Accelo and have all those email conversations at your fingertips. There are a few different ways that emails can get over to Accelo, and then there's some requirements they must meet to actually be captured. Since Accelo is meant to manage your client work, we don't want to capture all of your emails, just those that are relevant to clients, and ignore the rest. In a nutshell, Accelo will only capture emails that are to or from contacts that are already saved in the system. I'll just pull up in the Contacts tab for this company. For our examples in this webinar, I'm going to continue with the office references that my colleague Josh started last time. If there are any fans of the show on the line, you might remember Bob Vance is Phyllis's husband and owns a refrigeration company in the same office complex as Dunder Mifflin. So for email capture, if the email address of either the sender or recipient isn't already saved as a contact like Bob is here, then that email will not come over to Accelo. This ensures that those emails from your mom or kids or doctor that may have found their way into your work inbox won't get captured.
Okay, I gotcha. So if Accelo only captures emails to and from contacts, what about emails between staff members?
Yeah, good question, Alec. Emails between two staff members do not include a contact. Instead, they would be two users of Accelo. So these emails will not be captured. Since internal staff communications sent directly from your email platform aren't being saved, if you want these in Accelo, then the best practice is to create these internal emails and notes directly in the tool. The one exception for this is if that email is a reply to or forward of an email that is already in Accelo. So if that first email was originally sent from Accelo, or it was an email from a client that wrote in, any reply or forward of those messages to staff will also be captured and stored in the same location as that original email. One thing to note here is that since there is a big distinction between your users, your staff, and contacts, those clients, leads, and vendors in the system, for email capture, it's very important to never have your users also saved in Accelo as contacts.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. I think I have a good feel for how those emails come into the system now, but how does Accelo get access to these emails to begin with?
Yeah, good question. There are a few options for getting your emails over to Accelo, but the most common way is through Accelo's built-in email integrations with either Gmail, Microsoft 365, or Microsoft Exchange. To connect to any of these integrations, just go to your integrations page found under your user ID dropdown on the top right. You can see today I'm logged in as Pam Beasley. So if you go to that ID dropdown and go down to My Integrations, that'll pull up that integrations page. The first integrations listed on the top left are going to be your email integrations. You can see that I'm connected to the Microsoft 365 integration currently. All three of these integrations have the two main toggles for email capture. There's one toggle for your incoming mail that you receive from clients, and there's one toggle for your outgoing mail that you send. Just make sure that both of these are enabled, then Accelo will have access to pull in any emails that you send or receive, as long as they meet those requirements we just reviewed. It is important to note that there will be a short delay between when you receive the emails and when they get captured by Accelo. The integrations will reach out to your inbox on a regular interval, but how often we can do that is limited by Google and Microsoft.
Okay, but Dave, a lot of our client work is extremely time sensitive and needs to be worked on as soon as we get it. Is there anything we can do to speed up the email capture process and reduce that delay you just mentioned?
Yes, Alec, you can speed up the email capture for your incoming email by adding in forwarding rules to your existing inbox. To do this, each user will just want to go into the setup of their work inbox and add a rule that will forward every new email you receive to your Accelo capture account address. Your capture account address can be easily found by going back to that user ID dropdown and selecting My Account. You'll find that capture account address here. Notice that it's your username followed by the same URL that you use to log into Accelo. Set up that forwarding rule to just send every email here. And it's pretty easy to do. We're going to go ahead and send over some help guides in the follow-up email that go over that process. We do suggest adding that forwarding rule, even if you have one of the email integrations enabled for more timely email capture. But this would also be how you would use email capture if you didn't have Google or Microsoft and weren't utilizing our integrations.
Okay, so if the forwarding rules are only for that incoming email, is there something similar for outgoing email?
While it would be best practice to just send those emails directly from Accelo, there is a similar option for emails sent outside of Accelo. You may need to get your email administrator to help set this up, but a rule can be added so that all outgoing email is BCC'd to Accelo's log address. This address is just log at, followed by your deployment's domain for all users. I have a note back on that Vance Refrigeration company that explains this a little bit better. So I'll just go to my recently viewed companies tab to get back there. And then under the stream here, in the first note, I just break down those rules a little bit more so everyone can see. For incoming email, just make sure you set up a forwarding rule that'll send all new emails to your capture account, which will be your username, followed by @ and then your deployment.accelo.com. Again, it should be the same domain that you use to log into Accelo. For that outgoing email, on the other hand, you're going to instead be BCCing all of those outgoing emails to log@yourdeployment.accelo.com. Adding those rules in will ensure that timely email capture.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave. I often receive emails from contacts that aren't in Accelo yet, though. So, what would be the best way to get those emails into the system?
This is a great question, which lets me show off a trick that I think a lot of Accelo users might not know about yet. If you receive an email from someone that's not already saved in Accelo, you can simply forward that email to add@yourdeployment.accelo.com. So when Accelo receives that email, it'll add that contact to the CRM automatically and capture the email in the system. You'll see I also included that in my example here. So just forward any new emails you receive from contacts that aren't saved in the system to add@yourdeployment.accelo.com.
Thanks. That's a great tip, Dave, and seems super easy to put into effect as well.
Yeah, my pleasure. I hope this clears up how emails get to Accelo and which ones will actually get captured. It's a very powerful tool and one that I recommend to all of my clients during implementation.
All right, duly noted. So, my company has a support at email address for clients to reach out to for help, and an info at email address for people to request more information about our offerings and services and things like that. Is there any way to get these emails into Accelo?
There sure is. Excelo's request inbox feature is meant just for that. Setting up a new request inbox is easy. It only requires updating a couple settings in Accelo and adding a forwarding rule to your existing group inboxes. Let's just hop in and add a new request inbox together to review those main settings. You can get to your request type settings by going to Settings at the bottom, then opening up the Requests menu and clicking on Types. This will allow you to edit any existing inbox settings or add in a new inbox. Let's add in a new inbox for that info at email so you can capture all of those emails that come in, hopefully with some great sales leads and opportunities in there. Let's name this new inbox info, and we'll also type info into this incoming capture address here. This will be the email address that you forward emails to, so they are captured by this request inbox. Just set up a forwarding rule on your existing info at inbox that forwards all incoming emails to this address. This will work just like we discussed earlier for your personal emails, but it'll be for this request inbox instead. Once that forwarding rule is added, any of your staff will be able to come into this request inbox and respond to those client inquiries right from Accelo.
Okay, thanks, Dave. That doesn't seem too hard to do. One thing I am a little worried about, though, is that often I'll get emails into my info at email address from people that I've never worked with before. So, with that being said, I don't have them saved in Accelo as a contact. Is there any way to get those emails into the system?
That's a great point, Alec. And that's where this next setting comes in. The unknown sender handling setting gives you some flexibility for how Accelo will handle emails from contacts not already saved in the system. Let's review some of these options. The third option here, add them as a new contact straight away, is our least restrictive option. It will capture all emails that come into the inbox and create a new contact in Accelo for any email we don't recognize. While this option does bring in every email, you most likely don't want every unknown sender added to Accelo. For example, you probably don't want to save a contact for some of those spam emails, newsletters, or marketing emails that might find their way into your inbox. If you do, you might find yourself spending a lot of time going back and deleting out contacts that Accelo created automatically. This top option, only add the sender if we can match it to an existing company, is a little more restrictive option that will allow some of those emails to come through, but not all of them. If we can match the unknown sender's email domain to another contact in the system's email domain, Accelo will assume they work at the same company and go ahead and save the new contact under the existing company record, saving that request. If Accelo can't match that unknown sender's email domain, the email will just be ignored. Since this setting still does ignore some emails, this option might not be great for inboxes meant for sales and leads, but might be more applicable for support inboxes that you give out to your clients. However, this setting, add them as a lead and convert them to a contact later, is the setting I recommend for most request inboxes. This will allow every email to come into Accelo, but will allow you to choose if you want to continue with the request and save the contact, or cancel the request to disregard it, not adding any unwanted contacts to the database. Let's check out how this looks in an actual request inbox. You can access the inboxes by hovering over the inbox dropdown on the top right, and then picking your inbox. You'll see my support inbox has a few new messages in it, so let's check that out. The first request here is an example of a normal request that came in from a contact that was already saved in Accelo. You can clearly see it says Vance Refrigeration and Bob Vance here. Bob wrote in because he had a serious paper jam and needs some help ASAP. The next request, however, is from an unknown sender, meaning we don't have this contact saved in Accelo yet. Notice it simply says new lead across the top, since we don't have that company information saved in here. Since we have that lead option enabled, this means we get to choose if we want to add this contact in or just cancel this request. To cancel the request and ignore it, we can simply hit this close button at the top. Otherwise, if we choose to reply to the request or convert the request to a new sale or ticket, then Accelo will automatically create the contact so you can continue to do the work and respond to that request.
All right, that's great, Dave. I can definitely see how that lead option you just mentioned would be great for our info at email box that we have. One other thing though, we also like to have our initial responses to that inbox come from our info at email address. Is that possible to accommodate?
Yeah, there is a request inbox setting for this that I'll just show you. I'll just hit the back button to go back to that inbox setup page I was on. And if we scroll down, you'll see there's a dedicated activity from address. So if you enter in your info at address here, all responses from any request from any staff member will come from this address. One thing to note is that Accelo will send a confirmation email with a link to click on to give Accelo permission to send from this address.
Okay, I gotcha. So on a similar note, we have a support team that works out of tickets in Accelo, and we want them to be able to email out of Accelo, but I need all of their emails against tickets to come from our support at email address. Is that possible?
Yes, this is possible through the use of email aliases in Accelo. This last option I showed you would only be applicable to the request inbox. So once those requests are converted to tickets, this setting won't apply anymore. Emails that go out against tickets will come from your personal email address by default, unless you add an alias to that ticket type. Let's go to our ticket type settings and show you how to enable that email alias. To get there, just go to Settings, then open the Tickets menu, and go to that last option for types. Once there, you can edit the type with the Edit Type button at the top. And then on the top right side, you'll see our email sender address settings. Here, you can adjust the address used for any email sent from a ticket of this type. This setting will apply to all users, so it doesn't matter who is working on that ticket. For this case, we would want to use that last option that lets us use an email alias of our choice. You can just enter your support at email address here, and then any emails you send against these types of tickets will come from that address. One thing to note here is that Accelo will still show your personal email address in the stream, but don't worry, those emails your clients receive will be from the email alias instead.
Okay, that's a good tip, Dave. But now that I think about it, my support team also works on client projects too. Is there a similar setting that you have for projects?
Yes, you will see the same email alias option available for both projects and sales types as well. But depending on your exact goal, I might have a better recommendation. Rather than set up the email aliases on your work, instead, let's set up the aliases for your users. We can just add in an individual user email alias for each of your support team staff that will apply for all of their emails sent from Accelo. This would also allow for emails from non-support team members to still come from their personal email address. Let's review how to add this alias in for yourself or other users. To add it in for yourself, just go back to that user ID dropdown that we visited a couple times and go to My Account again. From My Account, you'll want to go to the Edit menu and pick to edit your user. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see there's some email sending options. The third option here will allow you to enter in that support at email address so that any emails you send from Accelo will come from this address. Just have each of your support team add this in themselves, or your Accelo admin can set it up for each team member by going to the user list.
Okay. Yeah, I think that'll work great for the support team. I do have another interesting scenario that I'd like to run by you. So, in addition to my main business, I also run a small personal business out of Accelo that has my own clients. Is there any way I can have my emails from Accelo come from a different email address, but just for that small subset of my own clients?
Yeah, Excelo's divisions functionality would work perfectly here. With divisions, you can add both clients and staff members to that division. And then for each user, you can set an email alias so that whenever they email a client in the division, it'll come from their division alias rather than their personal email. Let's go over adding in a division. If we just go to Settings, go to the Users and Groups menu, you'll find a Divisions option. This will allow you to adjust the settings for any existing divisions, or in this case, let's just add a new one. I'm just going to name this division Side Business and go ahead and save it. On the first tab, you can add companies to the division. So let's stick with Vance Refrigeration and add them into that division. Then a couple tabs over, you're going to want to add staff members to that division. So let's add Phyllis. Once added, we can click on the pencil icon to edit that user's division settings. Just change that user's email address here to have all emails that come from this user to any clients in this, in this division come from this division email alias. One thing that's really important to note and highlight is that anytime you use any of these email aliases I've shown you, you'll also want to consider how you get your clients' replies back to Accelo. For personal email aliases, like what we are showing here for divisions, or aliases for particular users, you'll want to set up a forwarding rule that goes to that user's capture account. So this is the same forwarding rule and capture account we looked at the beginning of the webinar, but you'll want to make sure it's set up for all those other aliases as well. Alternatively, for your group email addresses, for example, that support at alias we were looking at, you'll want to set up a request inbox to forward those emails to, again, like we reviewed a little bit earlier.
All right. Thanks for the tip, Dave. That makes sense. I definitely like the new visibility that email capture and the stream brings to my business, but I still do send sensitive emails to clients that I really just can't share with the rest of the team. Is there any way to keep those particular communications out of Accelo?
You know, Alec, rather than leave those emails out of Accelo, you can just use some of our built-in email privacy options. These will allow you to keep your email conversations in Accelo private from users that were not included as recipients to those emails. I'll just go to Add Email to show you how to add these. When sending an email from Accelo, you can adjust the privacy option by clicking on the lock icon at the bottom. You'll see there are two different options for both confidential and secret emails. Either of these options will keep your messages private from users that aren't included in the email conversation. I've got some examples we can look at in the Advanced Refrigeration Company stream. So let's just go back there again. I'll just pull up my recently viewed companies and go to Advanced Refrigeration. So if we look at the stream here, we'll see a couple examples of some secret and confidential emails. If I sent or received that email, for example, I have a message here that I sent to Bob Vance, I'll be able to see that email normally in Accelo. You'll be able to open it and read the email and clearly see who was involved in it. It does give you a nice visible label to tell you if it's a secret or confidential right there. But the big difference between the two is how it is viewed if you are not included in the email. Below is an example of an email that I was not included in that's confidential. You can see Dwight sent an email to Bob. I can't open the email to read it, and the header just says confidential as well as the email body. So I can't read the actual content of the email. For secret emails, on the other hand, if you're not included in it, it's not going to show up in your stream at all. So it gives you that extra level of privacy. With the confidential emails, you can still see that Dwight had an activity, and I can still see he sent that message to Bob. So it gives me that opportunity to go back and ask Dwight what he was talking about if I need to. As a tip, if you ever need to adjust the privacy setting of an email, you can just click into the subject of that email to take you to the activity page. Then on the right-hand side, you'll see this visibility setting where you can go in and adjust that email's privacy setting.
All right. That will work great for sending emails to clients, so thank you for that. But what about emails that I receive from my clients? Is there any way to get those marked as confidential by Accelo automatically?
For incoming emails or emails you might have sent outside of Accelo that we capture, Accelo will scan the subject and body of the email for privacy keywords. I have some examples of these in the stream as well. We can see in this confidential email, Bob wrote in and sent an email to Pam. Accelo started scanning this email for some of those keywords. We'll look in the subject of the email for the words confidential or sensitive. If we find any of those words in the subject, that email will be brought in as a confidential email. Similarly, in the body of the email, we're going to look for those same words, but they do have to be included inside of brackets, parentheses, or curly brackets. But with this example, Bob sent that out. Accelo found these emails in these words in the body of the email and brought that email in as confidential automatically. Similarly, for secret emails, we'll search the subject of the email for these three words: private, secret, or personal. In the body of the email, again, the same words, but we're going to look for those words in brackets, parentheses, or curly brackets. And if we find any, we'll bring that email in as a secret email. Another good thing to note about email privacy is that any replies to or forwards of emails that are already marked as confidential or secret will automatically get that same privacy applied. So Accelo will essentially mark entire email threads as confidential or secret if the first email was set that way.
Good to know. Thanks, Dave. I do have a few contacts in Accelo where all of my emails with them are sensitive. Is there any way to set up Accelo to keep all of my messages with select contacts private?
Accelo does have privacy relationships that you can set up with entire companies or individual contacts for just that reason. On the left-hand side of the company page, you'll see an option for privacy relationships. I'm just going to click on Add a Relationship, where we can view any existing relationships or add in a new one. Setting up these relationships is a snap. First, on the left-hand side, just pick if you want this relationship to be for the entire client, including every contact for that company, or if you just want to work with specific contacts for this relationship. In your case, you were talking about specific contacts, so let's just pick Bob here. Then on the right, you pick out the user this relationship is for and what level of privacy you want. So let's pick Pam and say she wants a confidential relationship with Bob there. Once that relationship is set, any emails between Pam and Bob will come in as confidential by default into Accelo.
All right, that makes sense. So our CEO really wants to utilize email capture, but is a little nervous that they will overshare certain pieces of information. Is there any way we can just have all of their emails be confidential by default?
Excellent question, Alec. Rather than setting up different relationships here for all of your clients, if you just want all of your emails to come in as confidential, we do have a setting for this in your user preferences. Let's check this out by going to your user ID dropdown again and selecting My Preferences. If we expand the Privacy, Email, and Activity Preferences menu, this first option will allow us to make our emails confidential by default. There are actually a few different options here for if you want all activities to be confidential, which would include any internal notes and time entries in the system, or if you just want your client communications to be confidential. For the client communications options, you actually can break that down a little further and choose if you want just the emails to be confidential, or if you want to include all client activities, which would include things like meetings and call logs as well. Before we finish up with email privacy, I do want to share one last tip here. I've shown you a lot of different ways to add privacy settings to keep some emails private, but will still allow most others to be visible to all your staff. If your goal is to only let your staff see their emails in Accelo and hide all the rest, you can always just remove the View All Activity permission for your staff. If that user permission is removed, then those staff members will only be able to see emails that they either sent or received, regardless of the email privacy settings on other emails.
All right, thanks for that, Dave. I'm sure a lot of users aren't familiar with these activity settings that we're on right now. So with that being said, are there any others that you want to highlight while we're in here?
Yeah, certainly. One other setting that I find particularly good to highlight is this next setting for auto contact creation. This setting will help pick up emails from companies that you work with that might not have all of the contacts saved in Accelo yet. When enabled, this setting will act as an exception to the rule I said earlier that only emails from contacts already saved in Accelo will be captured. It works similar to that option we briefly touched on for request inboxes. Accelo will automatically add contacts for unknown senders if Accelo can recognize the email domain and match it to an existing company in Accelo. If Accelo finds a match, it'll add the contact to that company automatically, capturing that email. It's a very useful tool that'll help you build out your CRM for known clients automatically just from the emails you receive.
All right. Thanks so much for that, Dave. Now, what you've seen today is an example of how an expert services session might run. Expert services are really just open format and collaborative discussions that are specific to the topics that you need support with. They're truly customized to help you solve business problems or optimize processes that are unique to your business. Some examples of what could be covered include assistance when you need to tackle challenges and obtain quick resolutions, detailed account audits to improve and optimize your configuration on the back end, and advanced end user training focused on the topics that are most important to your team. If you're interested in finding out more about expert services, you can email success@accelo.com, and an account manager such as myself will arrange a 30-minute, no obligation scoping call to understand your challenges and propose some recommended sessions to resolve them. You can also find more information about this on our Success Services webpage, which is located at the bottom of this slide. For reference, the website is www.accelo.com/resources/services. Okay, I think it's time for some Q&A now. We've seen a number of questions come through the Zoom chat, so I'm going to pull some of them out for us to discuss. So, this one we already did answer, but it could help to kind of highlight this, Dave. But someone asked, can I have two of my email addresses import into my Accelo inbox?
Yes, you can. That's just a matter of setting up those forwarding rules to your capture account. So for your different inboxes, just to review where we can find that capture account again, if you go to your user ID dropdown and go to My Account, then for that additional inbox you have, just set up a forwarding rule that'll send all emails to this capture account address, and that'll be specific for each user. It's just your username, at, and then your domain that you use to log into Accelo.
All right, thanks for that. Here's another one for you. Is there a way to stop your Accelo activities slash emails from syncing to your Gmail? Example, I have the Accelo inbox, but then the emails and activities also sync to my Gmail address.
If you turn off your email integration, that would stop that. But we're pulling emails from Gmail to bring them into Accelo. There is an option that I'll show you to make sure that you turn off for your user notifications. So if you go to your user ID dropdown and go to Preferences, and you go to your notification settings here, this top row of notifications, you create an activity. This is basically just sending you a copy of any email that you send from Accelo. So if your goal here is to not have emails you send from Accelo also get sent into your Gmail, then I'd suggest just turning off all of these toggles. Alternatively, if you do want emails you send from Accelo to show up in your Gmail or Microsoft 365 sent folder, then just make sure you enable these toggles, and that'll make sure it sends a copy over to your inbox as well.
Okay, let's see. Here's another one for you. If I forward emails to Capture, or let me start over. Sorry. If I forward emails to Capture and I have an integration, won't I get duplicate emails?
No, you won't. Accelo is really intelligent in that regard. It won't double your emails. We do a pretty thorough scan of the email header and can identify all individual emails and make sure that no duplicates come over.
Okay, here's another one. When I click action on an email, the email disappears. Am I meant to go back and track this down in the stream if I need to reference it again?
Yes, so actioning an email from your inbox, think of that similar to archiving an email in Gmail or Microsoft. It doesn't remove that email from Accelo, it just removes it from your inbox. So you can only keep things in your inbox that you need to get back to, going back to trying to keep your inbox empty. That email will be really easy to find in the stream. You can always just go back to the client that sent you that email and see all of their email communications right there. You can search for the email if you know the subject or any of the words in it and find it right there in the search bar as well. But to show you an example, this would be just like we were looking at earlier for advanced refrigeration. If you knew that email was for that specific client, you can always just go there. You'd be able to find it either in that company stream, which has its own search bar at the top too to narrow down those results even further. You'd also see it in that specific contact stream that the email was with. So if I open up Bob Vance's stream here, you'd be able to see the specific emails you've had with just them.
All right, thanks, Dave. Here's another one for you. I am a new user of Accelo. My email is not yet verified. How can I do this?
Right. So when you're a new user, you should see a warning bar across the top saying your email is not verified. There's a link to click. When you click that, it'll send you an email with another link to click that'll verify your email address. So you should see that orange bar. Just click the button there and then look in your personal inbox for a new email from Accelo to authorize it.
Okay, here's another one for you. What happens if your client has multiple domains and you wish to use the auto contact creation?
It's okay if your client has multiple domains. If Accelo finds a match to either one of them, then it will add that contact to that company. On the other hand, if you have multiple domains in multiple companies, then Accelo won't be able to match that unknown sender to a specific company, so we won't be able to automatically create it.
All right, here is another one for you. I was wondering if there is a way to sort the alerts in the Accelo request inbox automatically based on certain keywords in the message body. And for some more context, we have different alerts coming in from various clients, and it would be really convenient if Accelo could separate them by client name or the severity of the alert.
For your inboxes and request inboxes, we don't have those filters at the top for client name or different alert stuff, but we do have a search bar that you can use for that. If you really just need to see all the new emails or requests for a specific client, it might be better than going to your inbox. Again, just go back to that company page. So let's open up Advanced Refrigeration here. From that company page, if you go to your work tab, you'll be able to see any new requests from that client. Alternatively, it was a personal email, you could see all those in the stream. And then maybe search for that alert subject in the search bar there.
All right. So, kind of just going off of that, Dave, you think it would be helpful to kind of mention request triggers and how that could potentially accommodate or solve that problem?
Yeah, that would be a good option too. If we want to dig into triggers a little bit, on your request inboxes, you can set up triggers, which is one of the powerful automation features of Accelo. Basically, it'll just look at new requests that come in, and you can set rules that if they're met, the trigger will do a piece of automation. And it could be things like, in this case, probably prompt the team that needs to work on those specific type of requests. But we could even add one together real quick. So let's go to the request inbox here, and I'll pull up our types. And we'll just go to the support inbox to show you how to set up a trigger. So we'll go to triggers here, and we can add a new trigger. And let's call this notify team of new alert. For this trigger, since it's an internal notification, we don't really care what time of day it fires on, so we don't really need to adjust anything here. But we could set up some new rules. So we'll want this to fire off for any requests that are still open, basically. Any converted or closed requests, we don't want this trigger to fire for. And then maybe for this specific case, if we're trying to distinguish between different messages in the subject that indicate what type of alert this is, then we probably want to find a rule based off of a request field. Maybe we could look at that request title, and as long as it contains the word alert, then this rule will be met, and we can do the automation associated with it. Let's add in an action. In this case, maybe we want to notify the specific subset of your team that deals with these specific alerts. So let's go in and update the field. Oh, sorry, I picked the wrong one. We want to create an activity. So I'll hit cancel here. And we want to pick add activity, create activity, so we can send that email to your staff. Here, we can pick those standard recipients. So, let's say Phyllis and Dwight are on that team. Maybe we also want to include the client manager. You said in your question that sometimes it's by client as well. So this option here will include whoever's labeled as the account manager for that company. And then in the subject here, we could put things like the request ID again and say new alert, add in that request title and say, someone please pick up this new alert request. And once we save this trigger, once we save this trigger, anytime we get a new request in and it has alert in the subject, this email will go out to any of those recipients that we just selected.
All right, thanks for that, Dave. And just to kind of piggyback off that, another cool thing you can do with request triggers is like maybe you have some really high value clients. You could also put a request rule or a trigger rule in there to only fire for client A or client B. So you kind of narrow that down a little bit more. Could be helpful to add.
Yeah, if you want to do it for specific clients, just a matter of adding in another rule. So right now we have rules looking at the requests, but let's add a rule that looks at some of those company fields. If it's just a specific client, then I would suggest just going off that company name and saying it is that specific client. If it's a subset of clients that you're interested in, that's where you might want to go off of a different field. Maybe you have all of those clients in a separate status and you use that status, or you have a custom field that you want to use to identify those companies.
Thanks, Dave. All right, here is another one. This one's interesting. What is the best way to handle communications with clients that have multiple divisions, but they share a single domain?
So when you say multiple divisions, I'm guessing that means that you have them set up in different companies in Accelo. And there's no issue with that. The only thing that I mentioned earlier is that automated contact creation won't work if you have two companies with the same domain. So that's the only downside. Otherwise, there's no problem with having two companies in there with the same email domain. Another alternative is you could always have one company in there and then use some different fields on the contacts to distinguish the division they're in if you wanted. But yeah, the only downside to that, like I said, is that it won't allow you to use that auto contact creation feature I showed you.
All right, thanks for that. What about this one? Can you tell if someone has opened your email?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Accelo does have event tracking in here, and As long as you send that email from Accelo, you can always see if the clients opened it or even clicked a link within your email. To see the best place to see that, it would be the stream where you see that email to begin with anyways in Accelo. So let's just go back to that advanced refrigeration stream one more time. And if we go to an email down here that we sent from Accelo, oh, here's one. So we sent this email from Accelo to Bob Vance. You can see Bob's name is highlighted in blue there. If we hover over it, that's our indicator that Bob opened this email. The color will be white if Bob received the email and we confirmed it's in his inbox but hasn't opened it yet. It'll be blue if he has opened it, or it'll be green if he opened it and also clicked a link within that email. You can also see here, it clearly tells you the time and date that he did that as well.
Okay. Is there a way to import historical emails for a particular contact?
Yeah, this is a really useful feature as well. So you'll want to do that from the company page again. So go to the client page for the contact whose email you want to import. Then go to the contacts tab. And then next to that contact, there's 3 dots. If you click on that, you'll have a few options. One of them is import historical emails. So you click on that, and then Accelo will go through your old outbox and inbox and look for any emails that you sent or received to Bob and bring them in.
All right. Here's one more for you. Sometimes our emails get sent from the company stream, when in reality the email should have been sent against a project we're working on. How can we put that email against the project instead?
Yeah, great question. If you're in Accelo and you just want to move an email to where it should live, that's where the relocate option comes in handy. You'll find that relocate option anywhere you see the email in Accelo, if it's in the inbox, or if we're in the stream here and you use the 3-dot option, there's relocate there. Or if you were clicked into the email and on that actual activity page, like I showed you earlier, we have a big relocate button right at the top there. But you hit relocate, and it's going to automatically pull up any work it finds for the client you're on. So it's just got integration in here. And let's say we wanted this note instead to be on this project we have. We could pick the specific task of the project and then hit relocate to move that email to that task. You'd still see that email in the company stream. You would see it in the project stream and on the task stream in this case, but it would technically be living against that task, and any time logged with that email would be applied to that task as well. There is actually another option I'll show you too for emails that you might have sent outside of Accelo that you want to have email in and come straight to a project. For that, each sale, project, ticket, retainer in Accelo, they all have their own unique email ID. You'll be able to find that at the bottom of the page for any of those objects, but the last option here will be your project email alias. If you take any email and forward it to this email alias or write a new email to it, that email will come right into this project stream automatically.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dave. So this brings us to the end of our live training webinar. We really hope that this was helpful for you all. Any questions that we didn't get to will be answered via email as soon as possible. And we'd just like to say thank you for everyone for joining us today. Once again, we'll be sending the video recording to you all. And when we end the webinar, you'll be prompted with a survey link. And we'd really love your feedback. So if you have a few minutes to spare, it'd be great if you could fill out that survey to kind of let us know how we're doing. And within the survey, you can include topic areas that you'd like to see covered in future webinars. We definitely have a number of topics that are already planned, but we'd really like to hear from you all to understand the challenges you might be going through so that we can tackle these topics in other sessions. You'll be receiving an invitation to future webinars, and this recording will also be available on our website. That is all we have for today. Take it easy, everyone. Bye for now.